And of course, you can deduce what that segment is all about. What we're doing is reviewing the newspapers, reviewing the dailies with a lot of emphasis on the stories that made it to the front pages, stories of importance, story that I believe affects you and I. Well, for this segment of the show, I'm not going to be alone here in the studio, as aside from providing you this information, we deep further into the story, analyze it, analyze the facts that are presented in the stories, and then you're able to at least form your own opinion with accurate information. Fouad Said will be joining us virtually for that responsibility of analysis this morning on the show Trends in the Papers. Don't forget that we are on social media as we're streaming the show live at this very moment. So please go to our social media platforms on Facebook and on YouTube, Mainland 98.3 FM or facebook.com/Mainland 98.3 FM. We're also on YouTube, and you can follow us on X at Mainland FM or Twitter if that's what you still remember it as. Fouad, good morning to you. It's a pleasure to have you on radio again.
Yes, good morning, Sage. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Fouad. How are you doing?
Yes, good. A good day.
Oh.
Bright, beautiful day.
It is a good day indeed. Well, we do have the papers here. We have the Punch newspaper, we have the Guardian newspaper, and last but not least, we have the Vanguard newspaper. We're kicking off conversations by looking at the Punch newspaper. The top story here on the front page of the Punch: food crisis. OPS warns of shutdown as hoodlums loot more trucks. That is the headline, and we have a couple riders to this story. Building materials spaghetti trucks attacked in Ogun. Kaduna, 15 arrested in Abuja. Federal government condemns warehouse looting. Kano state evacuate wares states to get free grain. Those are the riders to the story. Now let's have a look at the story in itself. We have here reported in the Punch: the organized private sector has expressed concerns about the spate of looting of trucks conveying food and raw materials by suspected hoodlums, warning that it can lead to a shutdown of industries across the country. Members of the OPS gave the warning on Monday in separate interviews with the Punch, just as miscreants attacked trucks conveying building materials and spaghetti in Ogun State. They're saying that several trucks and warehouses, mostly owned by manufacturers and other members of the OPS, have come under attacks from hoodlums as the food inflation and the cost of living crisis has worsened across the country. Further story goes on ahead to highlight that those who constitute the private sectors are saying if this spate of looting continues, we would have no choice but to shut down operations, because we have a lot of members, of the organized private sector that do not even know where to begin from. Practically the entire wares, the entire goods, their shops have been looted. They have no goods to sell. And a lot of these people, Fouad, if you agree with me, operate with loans. They mostly operate with loans. So now they are at a crossroad and they have no choice but to shut down their operations at this time. Although the looting that happened in Abuja, 15 suspects have been apprehended, and of course they will be tried according to the law. But Fouad, isn't this an indication that we might see some sort of depreciation of our economy, further depreciation of the integrity of our economy, if people continue to break into private stores to loot and steal because of the so-called hunger that is ravaging the land?
Well, Sage, I think the organized private sector, which this report refers to as the OPS, is facing numerous challenges at this time. That's one sector that is not getting any meaningful support from the government as we speak. That's a sector that is faced with multiplicity of taxation, aggressive revenue drive from the government. That's also a sector that is complaining bitterly, say, about, rising import duties, very unfriendly import duty to be able to bring in raw materials and other things. That's also a sector, Sage, that is talking about high cost of production. That's a sector that is also faced with inability of Nigerians to be able to buy finished products. So a lot of their products that they are able to produce stay too long on the shelves. Now, the same sector is faced with looting, of products, when on transit or and what have you, or when they are kept in warehouses and all of that. It's so bad that, look, see, people are not even looting finished products. So they are also looting raw materials.
Right. So they'll think to sell it. That's their mindset. At least they can sell it and get money.
It's unfortunate, really. And I think yesterday, myself and Sandra, contempt, all of these actions of people, really. There are really no excuses, to go into things like that. You can't be looting people's businesses in the guise of hunger. It's just like somebody stealing or committing armed robbery and saying it's because he's hungry. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but again, it speaks to the reality of a lot of Nigerians at this time. People are hungry, yes.
I would like to draw your attention to what was said by the Lagos Chamber, the president of the Lagos Chamber. He says anarchy is looming. Let me quote him so we're not taken out of context. Now, we do have Gabriel Idahosa, who is the president of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And according to him, I'm quoting now, the chickens are coming home to roost. The government has asked the people to be patient, but the stomach cannot be patient. Even if the head wants to be patient, in a state of anomie, it will lead to a state of anarchy. He says there is no distinction between public and private in a state of anarchy. When the government allows chaos to happen, chaos does not know whether it is government or private property. When it rains, it does not rain only on the government, but on private property. The looters are not concerned whether it is government or private property. They just want food. Anything that looks like food, they will go after it. This is why concerned observers have asked the government to look for concrete measures to reduce the state of hunger in the land. End of quote. Fuad.
Fantastic from the LCCI executive there, saying it the way it is. There's nothing to add to it. If you like, you can repeat what they have said so that people will understand what we're saying here.
Yeah.
And I don't think what the LCCI boss has said is different from what we've been saying. So, when there was this back and forth between the president and organized labor, I said that, look, it's better to work with planned protests than to now begin to have situations where you have unplanned protests. What we are seeing now is unplanned, like this LCCI person is saying. These are people who it's spontaneous. They just want anything that looks like food. You understand what I'm saying? It's just very unfortunate now that, look, innocent people are now suffering this, because again, most of these warehouses don't even belong to government.
Yeah.
Most of these trucks belong to people who are taking loans, to stock up, or some of them are, have bought their goods waiting for delivery. And then how do you hear that, look, the truck that is bringing your goods have been looted? Looted empty. Because it's not that they just they take everything completely. So it speaks to the reality of what we've been saying. That this idea of the government saying people should be patient, look, when people are hungry, it's difficult to begin to tell them that they should be patient. And unfortunately, the people you are telling to be patient, they are not even seeing any example from you. You are not showing any example. You understand? There's nothing for them. They are looking at you on the other side, and there are no indications that, look, you are feeling what they are feeling. It is still the same old thing. No example, no discipline, no transparency, no concern. You just keep scratching the surface. And when we talk about looking for solutions to the problem, it's not about talking in I keep saying it. Because what you now hear is that we are going to give money to the governors now to begin to share rice and beans. I keep saying that the palliative thing will not solve any problem. It will further create bigger problems. And that's what we're seeing. Just share rice, share beans. What Nigerians have faced now has gone beyond, say you want to go and do soup kitchen. Which soup kitchen will solve the problem we have now? And when they make suggestions like this, when they make statements like this, the thinking pattern shows that, look, they are completely far from the reality. I'm telling you, when I see some of these politicians sit down and make some of these statements as to how to resolve the problem we have on ground, you will know that they are completely detached from reality. Completely. Apart from the hypocrisy that comes from what they are saying, the reality is that they are detached. They don't even know what is going on. There's a way you get fed to a particular point, you don't even know what is on the other side. There's a big fence separating them from the ordinary people. They can't see. Unfortunately, they now surround themselves with psychopaths, political jobbers, who just continue to precinct them and continue to give them analogies that portrays their lack of understanding of the real issue. And that's why you keep to hear conversation like soup kitchen. What is soup kitchen is the one we are talking about now. This one that we are seeing now. How does soup kitchen solve the problem. Or kitchen soup, depending on the way you want to call it. And they say, oh, because there's soup kitchen in some other countries. Is it the same level of hunger? The same level of, is it the same reality where those soup kitchen are working? Is it the same thing with us here? And then we're going to be saying rice, we're accepting rice, we're accepting people. Look, I'm just hoping that, look, and that's why the FCCI man is saying that, look, anarchy looms. Anarchy looms. Because the government has to do something quickly. The same thing the organized labor is saying. Look, no matter what you think about organized labor, they are still sticking to the reality of Nigerians at this time. When they told the president, please do your job. And on the social contract of governance, say, the first job of any government is the welfare of the people. And when the government is lacking in that responsibility, every other thing has failed. Because it's going to trickle down. Now we have high level of insecurity. Say, go to neighborhoods now. Everybody is on the edge. CDAs, community leaders, everybody is on the watch out, on the lookout. Nobody trusts anybody again. It's so bad now that even if you go into the market, see, to go and buy food stuff, they are starting it now. Food stuff.
Yeah.
You know, Abby.
If they take the money, it's not much they can really do with the money. So they just wait for
so
you to do the purchase, and then.
So you when you don't go buy chicken, buy rice, buy pepper. Okay, you don't think you for me.
Well, the government said they're going to begin the distribution of grains in a few days to the people.
Now? Look, for how many months now have you been able to distribute grains?
Well, they're saying they're going to kick out. They're going to have to expedite the distribution.
Now.
Okay, it's been a while.
How long has it been?
A few months. Last year,
so when would the grains be distributed?
Well, obviously they're going to have to expedite it, make it faster. Now that they see that there's agitation, but they did announce that the distribution.
How many people will get the grains now? So wait now, see, when they distribute the grains now, when you get the grains, then what do you do with the grains? You eat it raw?
No, you cook it now.
With what?
I don't know.
How much is a kg of gas now?
It's about 1,100 naira in my area. I think the prices depend on where you're living, but my area is about 1,100.
But at least over 1,000 naira.
Yes.
So you get the grains, and then what's the price of pepper? And then egg. If you even have, I think
it's 150 naira, 200. Also depending on where you're living.
You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Granite oil, palm oil. And then these grains, will they continue to give it to Nigerians every day or every week or every month? You see? Anyways, I just hope that again they'll be able to, tell themselves the home truth, understand that, look, we are not in a good place, and it's all looking very dangerous. It's looking very, very bad. This is not to sound alarming. The reality is the reality. The fact is the fact. And we can't continue to shy away from the truth, say. I think the government has to find a different way to approach this problem. Let me now tell you the same thing we said when the president came in and gave a policy outlook of making money for government with the promise that government will use the money to better the lives of the people. My mind tells me that even the presidency is now completely confused because they have now seen that, look, an attempt to get to the people, an attempt to try to alleviate the suffering of the people, using the political class will amount to nothing. Because you have an extremely corrupt political class. That is why, you look at when the idea of the 2 billion first came up. It was supposed to be 5 billion.
5 billion, yeah.
I am sure somebody called the president and said, well, if you give them 5 billion, okay, Lord, yeah. They started with 2 billion. And then we were expecting the 2 billion, did we see anything? That's why I say, look, when you make policy statements and ideas, you have to be realistic about it. And when government, and that's why they talk about localizing your policy, domesticating your ideas to your own realities and peculiarities. The fact that it works in other places does not mean to work in your own place. You have to look at yourself and tell yourself the own truth. And that's why all of these prescriptions by the World Bank, IMF, and until we domesticate our problem, when it comes to looking for solutions, nothing will work. And that's why I keep saying that, look, whenever government wants to come up with a policy, there must be an analysis of the corruption index against the policy you are trying to enact. Let's you are just deceiving yourself. Now look at what we have now. How do we solve this problem now? See? We should give more money to the governors or the local government chairman. how are we going to solve this problem now? Subsidy is gone now, even though the reality shows that we are back to subsidy. So how then do we solve this problem now?
Well, Fuad, we have to move on to other stories, but thank you very much. This is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Now, earlier you spoke about how we need to domesticate the solutions or the policies that we make. Well, former President Olusegun Obasanjo definitely has something to say, as we have a story on the front page here. Approach Zimbabwe for solutions to inflation, Obasanjo tells the federal government. We have here former President Olusegun Obasanjo on Monday advised that Nigeria should approach the government of Zimbabwe for a solution to the current all-time high inflation in the country. He noted that since Zimbabwe was recently confronted with the same problem and they came out of it, the Southern African country would have useful advice for Nigeria. In his latest release, the National Bureau of Statistics has put Nigeria's inflation at 29.9%, and the country is currently grappling with high cost of living, with pockets of protests breaking out across the country as Nigerians contend with increasing prices of foodstuff. I mean, Fuad, we can definitely agree to an extent that the economic woes is spread across different countries in Africa, but the former president is highlighting Zimbabwe as they are slowly pulling out of the recent economic crisis that they also experienced. And he's saying maybe talk to stakeholders there. They could give you insight into how to solve Nigeria's problem. Is this an advice you think we should take to heart?
Well, I don't know what Zimbabwe has been able to do, because that's one of the countries with the worst economic crisis in the world in recent times.
Right.
And I don't know how far they've been able to resolve their inflation problems, their economic woes, and all of that. So that was a country that ran into serious problems with their policy on nationalization of foreign business and entities. And they ran into trouble where the Zimbabwean dollar became completely useless, quote unquote.
Buying bread with Ghana
for 10,000 US Zimbabwean dollars.
Using bags for a bread.
So when Obasanjo is saying we should talk to Zimbabwe, I was like, so what is he saying? And I don't know how far, like I said, I don't have the information. I don't know how far Zimbabwe has been able to solve their own problems for us to now begin to look at Zimbabwe for solution. And if you look at that story, there was nothing really said as to what Zimbabwe has done so far. The only thing was that, look, ask Zimbabwe for help. And I'm like, look at how bad the situation is for the country. So us now begin to look at Zimbabwe for solution.
Fuad, calm down. We are falling too far down the rabbit hole. Ukraine is donating grains to us. So
that's part of the problem.
I don't think we have the luxury of pride and arrogance. At this very moment, we don't have the luxury of, if a war-torn country is able to send 250 metric tons of grains to Nigeria, a war-torn country, we don't have the luxury of pride right now. We will talk to any and everybody at this point.
Yes, so we should talk to Zimbabwe for how Zimbabwe, how they did. Like I said, I don't
do the same things. Right.
So we should talk to Somalia too.
No,
or maybe talk to Afghanistan.
Why Ozilo far? He's going far.
So or maybe we should talk to people in Gaza.
No, how
see, it's again, unless the Olusegun Obasanjo is trying to be sarcastic, really. Because again, I tried to read through the story and I was trying to dig into it to check what he was trying to say, really, with us looking at Zimbabwe for solutions. But like I said, I don't have the complete details as to what Zimbabwe is able to do, because I know that that's a country that has the worst kind of inflation ever in the history of mankind. And so, but again, I feel that when it comes to our issue of inflation, it said that there are domestic issues that we have to consider.
Yeah.
What is leading to inflation in other places may not be the reason why we have our own inflation. You understand what I'm saying now? Because there are different peculiarities, there are different reasons and all of that. And I think, so that we don't waste too much time, the reasons why we have this inflation has been well highlighted. We've touched on it severally. And it's also for the government again to, and that's why the government, people are looking to this particular government to come up with, a more sustainable solution to this problem. What we are getting from this government is much more rhetoric. Promises, rhetoric, glowing statements, beautiful statements, what I can call vague promises. Those are things you can't really hold on to. You see, people cannot live their lives based on mere promises. Especially when the person making the promise is not even showing any example. Say the president is back from Qatar, right?
Yes.
After, and people have been asking questions about that visit. A lot of things have happened, trending issues.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the two sons of the president, where were they on that visit? Where were they on that delegation? That's the presidency that announced to us, in cutting down the cost of governance, that we were going to be reducing the number of the president's entourage, whether on foreign or local trips. This one now, he went to the 38-man delegation as against the announced 20 as suggested. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
Now on that delegation, we have the two sons of the president. Look, say, that is not even as embarrassing as to when the Qatari officials were to meet the Nigerian delegation and they lined up to meet the Qatari officials. Say, before even the foreign minister and other ministers in that delegation and officials of government, the two sons of the president were the fourth on the line. Did you see that video?
I'm sorry, Fouad, do they hold any position in this government? I just want to know if they're holding any specific position, so at least we know that they are going to represent the organization that they're holding,
Unless the office of the son of the president has been created without our knowledge.
It's not known to the constitution. They cannot do that.
Things happen. No, maybe it has been created without our knowledge. Because how do you explain it? And that's what we're saying. Those little things matter. See, no matter what anybody says, the optics matters. Again, to a large extent, governance is about perception.
Yeah.
Governance, to a large extent, is about perception. You have a delegation of the Nigerian delegation on a high-powered meeting like that with the Qatari officials who were so organized, who had everything. They were so spot on with what they were doing, and they were to meet the Nigerian delegation and first online, even before the Minister of Foreign Affairs and other ministers of government were the two sons of the president. What kind of breach of protocol is that?
Fouad, allow me to play devil's advocate for a little bit, because I've seen commentary on this particular, incident, and we've had analysts who say that, other world leaders, when they go to meetings like this one, they usually take their family. So I want to understand, is it the act of taking his son in itself that's the issue, or because of the problems that we have, the peculiar problems that we have, that's why, this is seen as a problem? Because we have leaders who take their children, to meetings like this one.
No. Say, look, you see, what is bad is bad. The fact that some other leaders are doing does not make it right.
Right.
You understand? And that's why even in those countries, you see people questioning such behavior. It's not a jamboree. It was supposed to be a high-powered business meeting with the Qatari and Nigerian officials, for God's sake. And it would have been nice to know in what capacity the Nigerian president's son were in that part. Look, we're even talking about the optics now. Maybe if they were the last on the line, maybe. But look, you don't understand. Because you'll be mentioning the names of, because the Qatari guys will be asked, okay, the president will say, so what would the president be telling the Qatari premier now? That, this is my son, my first son, and my second son. And then after that, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And the man will be like, why is the son here? As what precisely? Are we running a monarchy? If it was a monarchy, so he's the heir apparent. After him, his son. So he's preparing him. But we don't run a monarchy here, see. And then, and this is, there was a time, even the president, if you remember recently, barred his son from attending first meeting.
Yes.
You remember?
Yes.
So, if he did that, has he suddenly forgotten that, look, the reality is that the guy is just been lounging and faffing around too much around government activities. A lot of people are talking. What is his role? Like one of our senior boys in the industry was saying yesterday on TV. Does he have a job? Is he not busy? Why is he lounging and faffing around the government? I'm talking about the two sons of the president now. It's important for us to talk about it. Because those are the things we keep talking about optics and perception when it comes to governance. But again, if that is the way they want to run the government, so be it. But we're saying that, look, Nigeria is not in a good place. And like Mr. Cotty said something, he posted it on his Facebook handle, and I have to share that, look, citizens are like children. They listen, they watch what you do than what you say. That citizens of the country are like children, just like when you have a child, or you have children at home, and you keep saying one thing and doing something else. Let me tell you, your children will not pay attention to what you say They pay more attention to what you're doing. And when what you're doing is in contrast with what you're saying, they go with what you're doing. And that is what we're seeing with our leaders in Nigeria.
Right. Page 34 of the Punch newspaper is where you find more information. If you're just joining us, this is Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. It's 6 minutes past 8 a.m. We are streaming the show live on Facebook and on YouTube, facebook.com/Mainland 98.3 FM, or just search Mainland 98.3 FM on those platforms, Facebook and YouTube. You'll be immediately connected with our page, and then you can join the live stream. My name is Sage Babalola. I'm talking to Fᴜʟᴜ virtually, and together we are looking through the front pages of our dailies. We're looking at Punch, more specifically at this particular time. Not to worry, we will get to the segment of the Morning Express where we open the phone lines, but for now we just want to focus on dealing with the stories that have been reported. Well, we have another story here, Fouad, that says banks involved in 90% of financial crimes. This is according to the EFCC. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission on Monday indicted banks as being linked to about 70% of financial crimes in Nigeria. The EFCC chairman, Ola Olukayode, disclosed this while speaking in Abuja at the 2023 annual retreat and general meeting of the Association of Chief Audit Executive of Banks in Nigeria. Olukayode, who was represented by the Director, Internal Audit EFCC, Idowu Akpejoye, said there was a need for concerted efforts by relevant authorities and professionals, especially audit executive, to prevent and tackle the issues of fraudulent practices in the financial system. He says that financial fraud happens both outside and inside the system. He says, for example, inside we have selling of customers' deposits, authorizing loan facilities, forgery, and several other kinds of unhealthy criminal practices. And outside is where we have the ATM fraud, the conspiracy, among others. And it's then absurd that when they collaborate, the collaboration amongst the bankers and the outsiders is why we have such a surge in financial crimes. Is this a notion that you align with, Fouad?
That's 100%. Okay. 100% really. It's difficult to fault what the EFCC is saying. The EFCC boss is saying. The only thing I have with when people tell us the problem is that what do we then do with that? They now have the job.
He says to sanitize the financial sector and monitor the activities of banks more closely. That's their recommendation.
Well, I think they need to do that. The EFCC needs to do that. Also, the CBN. We keep talking about. For example, this forex crisis, and the complicity and the collaboration of the banks with speculators. The fact that even the banks are even now becoming the major speculators is a problem in itself. And I'm going to go with what Chief Bode just said recently about even the bank executives. And look, a lot of these guys are becoming billionaires in dollars. They are becoming multi-billionaires just by owning banks. What are they producing? What are they doing? Is it about just the deposits from banks and some of the investments and all of that? Are there things that the banks are doing that we don't know about? How is it that the bank executives and the banks are declaring huge profits, making a lot of money from a struggling economy? There must be something they're doing that we don't know. You understand what? That's on a bigger scale now. So we know that the banks need some form of reining in. There's a need to clean a lot of activities of bankers and the banking sector at this time. Because again, it's still about tackling corruption. And it's important that it's good that the EFCC is also speaking to that particular issue. So it's just necessary for the EFCC, the CBN, and everybody involved to ensure that, look, we get a bank that will run professionally and engender transparency and accountability in their actions. We have a situation where a lot is happening really that ask questions around it that we have not been able to answer. So it's good that the EFCC also enlightens this, and we hope that the authorities who have the mandate to do the job will fix the problem.
Right. You can get more information on page 36 of the Punch newspaper. Moving forward, SIM NIN, NCC defends blocking of phone lines. Lawyer slams 10 billion naira suit on NCC. Now, Lagos-based lawyer Olukoya Ogunbeje on Monday filed the 10 billion naira suit before the Federal High Court in Lagos against the Nigeria Communications Commission, its executive vice chairman, chief executive officer of Nigeria Communication Commission, Dr. Aminu Maida, for alleged inconvenience, discomfort, injury and loss of business opportunities by Nigerians due to the blocking of their lines not linked to their national identification number. Other respondents in the suit are MTN Nigeria Communication PLC, Airtel Network Nigeria, Globacom Limited, and Emerging Markets Telecommunication Services Limited, also known as Nine Mobile. Just for the sake of summarization, we have this lawyer Fuad who's dragging the NCC to court, although his initial suit did not mention the NCC and he's refiling to mention the NCC. But I've listed the other respondents in the suit. He says that the barring of lines, I think 4 million lines have been barred now since the deadline of I think February 28.
I'm sure they barred his own lines.
Probably, and he's saying that a lot of businesses have recorded huge losses because of the barring of line, and is more or less like a disregard for their business and the profit that they're trying to make. And so the case is currently in court, or he has at least filed a suit to the court.
I'm sure the lawyers will sort that out and finish the case in court.
But then they gave deadline for this has been on for over a year. So, it's been on for over a year, so I don't understand. But that's the story.
Don't you? Because again, I think at the end of the day, you will have to prove how personally this buying of lines has inconvenienced him and why it's a problem to him. He has to personally show why this is a problem to him. I'm not sure he can be speaking for others because he doesn't have the mandate to file a case for other people who have been bad unless they come together as a people. So now, but I think instead of going to court and the back and forth, it would have been a lot easier for him to have registered his line.
Right.
Than going, you don't understand.
Just register.
Go to court and
why you don't pay lawyers? You're going to do all of that. Just go and register the line. But to each his own.
Yoruba said, "Tony go she two lenko. Only will bro she two. You just go and register your line. Which was this problem? But again, like I said, it's a case in court, and I don't know what can come out of it. Okay. Even though the telecommunication companies are already saying that, look, if they have about 4 million lines that have been bad, it's going to affect them. That's about 4 million people. Even if 4 million people are spending 200 naira every day on calls and data usage,
that's a significant amount of money.
But what has to be done has to be done. You understand what I'm saying? Right. We can't be complaining about this high level of insecurity, fraudulent practice, and all of that. And if this is what is going to help us fight some of those things, it has to be done, really. So, but let's see what comes out of this kind of case. But I'm just like,
right.
What do we get from this? Yeah.
Right. Page 35 is where you find that story. We have on page 35 also. I just want to put that out there. Dangote names refinery road after Wigwe. I think that's his own way of paying tribute to the late Herbert.
Has he started producing TMS and
he just names the refinery road after Wigwe. Like I said, that's just his way of paying tribute.
I was more interested about. I thought he was saying Dangote has not produced before.
That's not what the story says. The story doesn't say that.
Okay, well, that's a good one. Yesterday, the business world came to a standstill for Herbert Wigwe.
Yeah.
Celebrating his exploits as a young businessman to becoming one of the richest Africans. I think it was nice. I was watching it on TV. I saw the tribute. He has a very rich CV. The citation about him, how he started from. An interesting thing to say. He was born in Lagos here. Lagos Island Maternity was where he was born. That's also one interesting thing. I think he's from River State, but they gave birth to him here at the Lagos Island Maternity. He rose through the rank and file, young banker to becoming owning a bank, which is a long-time friend. And then, I think he did well for him. So very unfortunate, the helicopter crash that killed him, his wife and his son. And the older man of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, it's very unfortunate. But I think the tributes are in order. I think the respect for him are in order. He's done well for himself, and we just wish his family would have the strength really to deal with this great loss. Because again, God is God.
Budget, agreed loans for Nigeria. Fuad, I would like us to up the pace just a little bit. We have here the Africa Development Bank Board of Directors have approved $134 million for Nigeria to implement an emergency food production plan. AFDB President Akinwumi Adesina has said, and now according to him, talks are also ongoing for a $1.7 billion economic and budget support loan, as well as the launch of a $1 billion agro-industrial processes in 28 states. So Fuad, we're going to see the AFDB supporting us with loans that sum up to about $134 million to aid in food production, basically just to aid the agricultural sector, and they are focusing on 28 states for now. Also a loan support plan, to the budgets to aid food production in the country.
The loan is one thing. The other thing we should now talk about is the judicious use of this money. You understand what I'm saying, Sage? Yeah. Because again, why some of us are not so excited when we hear these huge figures? Normally, it's supposed to help us. King Additional is our own, and I think he's been using his influence, to support bringing this money. Especially when it comes to developing the agricultural sector. Food sufficiency for Africa and Nigeria. But again, when I talk about corruption index, but I'm sure the African Development Bank would also be involved in supervision and monitoring of the deployment of these funds. So it may well just work out well for us. I'm optimistic about this one. I think it's a good one. Whatever money we can get now to help with agricultural production, mechanized farming, sufficiency is a welcome development at this time. I think those are more sustainable approach to solving the problem we have on ground than this idea of we share grain for over 4 months without any.
Of course. Page 35 of the Punch newspaper. Don't forget that we're live on Facebook and on YouTube, facebook.com/mainland 98.3 FM. Finally, NSCDC, Tompolo men raise Ondo oil thieves hideouts. That's the headline. Well, apparently we've been able to apprehend a couple suspected oil thieves, and they will definitely face the law, and this is as a result of joint collaboration between the NSCDC and also Tompolo's firm. Let's call it that. At least that's what the Punch is describing. Tantita. So that's that for that story. Let's move very quickly now to the Guardian newspaper. They do have the top story here on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. It says 198,432 pending court cases leave many in jail. Businesses stranded. That is the headline. And now we have the story. The woes of the slow justice delivery system in Nigeria have continued to take a toll on Nigeria's socio-economic existence, with over 198,432 cases pending at the Federal Capital Territory Magistracy and Federal and Appeal Court. The president of the Court of Appeal, Justice Monica Dangbon-Mensah, disclosed this during the 2023-2024 legal year ceremony. So I have gone through the report. I did catch the story earlier. So for what we have, correctional facilities and prison systems that they're just overbloated, if that's how I can describe it. We have too many people in correctional facilities, and now they're
waiting trial.
Awaiting trial. Most of them have not even been convicted or nothing like that. And so a few solutions were recommended in this report. First things first, this is to decentralize the Supreme Court. Also, certain cases should end at the Appeal Court. They're saying that the Supreme Court should have, should I say, annexes across the six geopolitical zones, among other things. And
just like the Appeal Court.
Exactly, and these are the ways they think we can help to, unbundle the correctional facilities and also the prison structures that we have in the country. Well, what are your thoughts?
I think beyond that, there are also suggestions. I think one or two senior lawyers, you read the report very well.
Yeah.
I've also suggested, technology, adoption of technology.
Sterilizing the whole process.
The whole process, because there's still this idea of writing judgments, the old way of doing things is doing what we're doing. And so they think that, look, if we adopt more technology, digitalize the entire process from filing to taking of cases, summons, and all of that will make it faster for cases to be, dispensed with. And there's also the conversation around employing more judges. Say that this is the time to employ more judges, so that, because again, what is being said is a lot of these judges are overworked. A lot of them are overworked, and so sometimes you have the fatigue, then you have some unnecessary adjournments and all of that. There are also people who have suggested that there should be special courts to handle some special cases. For example, there's still the conversation around the election petition. The country has special courts to deal with election petitions than a regular court, because again, election year, the courts are inundated. They are just taken over by court cases, election petitions and all of that. And for sometimes 6, 8, 9, 10 months. They don't deal with other cases. They are faced with election petitions and all of that, So it's not about justice, the reform of the justice system, the reform of the judiciary. That's the conversation I think from this particular report, and I think it's something we'll continue to talk about. Right. The suggestions are there. The professionals know what to do. We just hope that they will do what they have to do, Because again, it's a common saying, justice delayed, justice denied.
It's unfortunate. And then we also have all the political litigations that are just slowing down the process of taking over, of dealing with civil matters as well.
When you have an election where about 80% of the election are contested in court, it's a problem.
Yeah, indeed.
You've conducted an election and more than 80% of those elections are contested in court. And it takes months, you understand, for those cases to be dispensed with. So you just clog the court processes, they can't even attend to other issues. So we need to fix that. We need to really fix that thing.
All right. Well, we have more stories here. I think we have addressed this. Federal government to begin grain distribution, insist warehouse looting criminal and beyond hunger. And in the same breath, although this is a different story but is related, looting food warehouse reflection of hunger, frustration of Nigeria, says INC. So there's this back and forth between, members of the government and also members of other groups who are saying that the looting is as a result of hunger. The government are saying this is not about hunger, this is just about criminality. So there's that back and forth, argument as to what is responsible for the recent behavior of individuals with the looting and stealing private, property and things like that. Just comment very briefly on that, Fuad.
It's about hunger. That has not helped those that have criminal intentions. So now we also take advantage of it. So one thing leads to one thing. There's hunger in the land. There are people who are desperate. They're just looking for food. So on the sidelines are criminals waiting to take advantage of the situation. Right. So we should fix hunger so that criminal elements cannot take advantage of the hunger in the land that have put people to be desperate to now begin to look for food anywhere. Like I said, they're not even looking food alone. Anything that looks like food. That
can be sold. That would...
That can be sold. Let's just fix. Look, this is over there 4 decades of my life. It has never been this bad. Anybody can come and argue with me. It has never been this bad. It has never. I say it again. It has never been this bad. So let's just... And that's the fact on ground now. And we have to solve that problem. Well, so whether it is criminal or not, the reality is that there's too much hunger in the land and it's pushing people to these things.
Page 6 of the Guardian newspaper and also page 27 of the Guardian newspaper have these two stories. We have here, monetary tools cannot solve food price crisis, additional insist. The president of the AFDB also said other things. He says that, the decision of the MPC the CBN, the Monetary Policy Committee, let me call it that, to tighten all these monetary tools is not the solution to a food crisis. Yes, we understand that these policies are sometimes employed to deal with economic crisis, but the specific problem we have right now is food crisis, and all this policy tightening and increasing the NPR to 20%. You have 1 minute. Is not the best way to tackle this. He says the solution is simple: just produce more food rather than tighten all these monetary tools.
Well, again, we have always said it. We keep saying it. Monetary fiscal policies are not enough to solve our problems, especially when it comes to food inflation, our food crisis as we have it. We have to do the hard work. We have to roll up our sleeves, buckle our shoes, and do the hard work. And that's why we have to be careful to continue to pay lip service, the issue of diversification of the economy, especially when it comes to the issue of agriculture. It's not about, look, if you remember, and I think we need to refresh our memories. I think in July or June last year, the president also did a broadcast, a national broadcast, promising some form of agricultural revolution. There was this figure as to, cultivation of land. We're going. Your
call credit has been exhausted.
All right, I sincerely apologize for that. Anyways, we're slowly getting to the end of the program. I do not have any certainty that we're going to be able to reconnect with Fuad before at the end of the show, but not to worry, we'll be back by 8:40 a.m. after commercials to discuss the stories that we select for Mainland Focus. I guess I'll just use the rest of the time we have to read the remaining headlines. We do have on the front page of The Guardian still, stop proliferation of arms, light weapons, Tinubu tax AU and the United Nations. Now, the president has called for increased collaboration between the AU and the UN to end the proliferation of arms and light weapons in Africa. He has expressed concerns over the preponderance of weapons in several African countries and the contribution to conflicts, insurgency, violence, and loss of lives in the region. Basically, the president is trying to collaborate with the African Union and the United Nations to help to stop the proliferation of light arms. And you can understand that a lot of Nigerian governors have been calling for individuals to be allowed to bear arms, or the legality of arms bearing in the country, which a lot of those who constitute the Senate have gone against, as they believe that this would increase crime rates in the country. Well, the president is asking for help from these international organizations, and that's on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Also on the front page of the Guardian, Amotekun arrests 3 jailbirds, 64 others in Ondo. That's the headline. We also have here, reviewers Oronsoye report before implementation, civil servant tells federal government. And that's about all the stories we have on the front pages of the Guardian. Now, for Vanguard newspaper, it's reported here, Obaseki faults CBN, warns of tougher times ahead. Electricity, discos reject 753 megawatt despite federal government's pressure. We have here, corporate Nigeria shuts down for Wigwe. And finally, for New Telegraph newspaper, we have on the front page, why Senate's resolution will give Kano 440 policemen, Lagos 200, Bayelsa 80, and this is about the recruitment of individuals into the security architecture. The recruitment board will allow the federal character principle, says the law will favor a state-based agreement. Also on the front page of New Telegraph, attacks on trucks, man threatens to halt nationwide movement of goods. I think we addressed that when we looked at the Punch newspaper. Also here, hardship, Obasanjo counsels youths against suicide. Federal government sets up public hearing on national minimum wage. Edu chairs Southwest hearing to hold in 6 zones. And that's about it for today's trends in the papers. I sincerely appreciate you for your time, and we apologize for the abrupt end of the program, but not to worry. At 8:40 we will be back. For outside will join us. We'll pick 2 stories for conversation and then open the phone lines. Don't forget to follow us across our streaming platforms on Facebook, facebook.com/mainland 98.3 FM, YouTube mainland FM, and on X or Twitter at mainland FM. My name is Sage Babalola. You are still listening to the Morning Express on mainland 98.3 FM. We'll be back at 8:40 a.m.
You're listening to mainland 98.3 FM. Follow us on all our social media platforms on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at mainland 98.3 FM. On Twitter at mainland FM. We are the sound of Lagos.
Mainland 98.3 FM, your number 1 radio. Reaching the stars, the sound of Lagos.
Number 1001 reason to love Golden Penny pasta. It's rich in protein. Number 1002 contains fiber. Number 1003, it tastes great.
Number 1000.